Well, good morning, everyone. I am Tim, Sales Development Manager here at Dot Incorporated, and I'd like to welcome everyone to this happy first of the year monthly webinar series by Dot. Today's webinar will be a wonderful discussion with the very infamous and awesome master of all Braille related to JAWS, Joe Stevens. So we'll have a few housekeeping items. So if you could, everyone, please keep all of your questions and answers in that questions and answer box, and we'll get to them after the presentation. The presentation is expected to take about the hour, so we'll wrap things up at the top of the hour, and that does include the questions and answer sessions. Also, if you are interested in learning more about Dot Incorporated, we'll go ahead and give that information to you all towards the end of the presentation. But let us first go around the horn here and introduce all of the members here that we have of the DOT team, starting with Joe.
Take current.
Good morning.
Participants can now see your screen. Press F6 to view pop-up.
You didn't tell us you were going to do this. So hello, everybody.
And good morning, Joe. How are things going over there for you?
Lovely and cool at 4 a.m.
And that's one thing that I cannot express my gratitude more and appreciation for everything that you are going to do, especially with having such an early morning with joining us today.
Thank you.
Also from the DOT team, we have Gary.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here for another webinar.
And then helping us on the back end, especially when we get over to that questions and answer session, we have our wonderful Luis and Anat.
Hi, everyone. Nice to be here. Thanks for having us.
Good, whatever part of the day you're joining us from.
Yeah, you should have added to the intro, Tim, to explain which location you're calling in from, because we've got quite some geography covered.
And that's absolutely right. This is our first time when we have both northern and southern hemispheres and everywhere else around the world covered from our team alone. So with that, let's hand things off to Joe so we can learn everything about how can we get the most out of the awesome capabilities of JAWS multi-line Braille output mode with the DotPad X. That, Joe, you were an instrumental person in making this happen.
More options for new share alt plus pause share alt plus team layout. Press to open.
Can
Participants
you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we do.
Roger.
Very good. Well, good morning, everybody. Yes, I am actually coming to you from the lovely Tasmania, south of the mainland of Australia. And it is just after 4 a.m. And I'm going to be talking about, as you know, the DotPad and JAWS. For those of you who haven't seen the DotPad, it is the world's first multi-line Braille display. It is literally a Braille screen with 8 lines of Braille, 20 characters per line when it's running with JAWS. It has a main area which is used for the multi-line Braille and also graphics. And it also has a line below the main area, which we use for status information when run with JAWS. With other screen readers, it can also be used for text output. There are 6 buttons on the top panel of the display. We have a left arrow, then we have functions 1, 2, 3, and 4, and a right arrow. So those buttons are used for navigation. And the Braille surface is covered by a thin membrane to protect the dots. And if you are living in a hot region of the world, like it is in Australia at the moment with summer, I use a cotton glove to read the DotPad because it stops the clammy finger dragging on the plastic. So just a little tip in case you are in a hot country and you feel like the DotPad surface sticks to your fingers. All right, so the JAWS screen reader is a very powerful screen reader, as you know, and it works really, really well with the dot pad. And I'm going to go through lots of the things that JAWS can do with the dot pad today, fairly briefly, but nevertheless, we will just go over to
Test
my
long paragraph
document
dot docs
here.
word. Test long.
Right, so I have a long document on my screen at the moment, and JAWS is currently in what we call wrapped mode, which is basically where the text is wrapped across the display. Now, when we talk about multi-line Braille, it's not like just one line of Braille which happens to wrap onto a few lines and then the rest of the display blank. Literally, the entire display gets filled with Braille, and JAWS figures out how many paragraphs to grab to put onto the display, and it figures out exactly where you get up to at the bottom of the display, so that when you press the pan key, the cursor moves and regathers text from that new location. So it's a seamless page turn. So right now I've got my favorite document up, which is Psalm 119, which has got 176 verses. And at the top, it starts off 1. Blessed are those whose way is blameless, who walk in the law of the Lord. And at the bottom of the display, we have the end of verse 2, which finishes heart. And if I press the panning
Braille
key,
pan right.
and you'll hear me press pan right because I've made it so JAWS will tell you what keys I'm pressing. It starts off with verse 3. And then if I press
Braille
it
pan
again,
right.
it will start off with verse 6.
Braille
Press
pan
it
right.
again, verse 8. And so it's a perfect continuity in wrapped mode. So everyone probably knows about wrapped mode because that's the default mode. But what I'm going to do now is show you the split modes. Oh, but before I do that, let me just tell you about the status line. So the status line is the single line at the bottom of the display.
Top of file, 1 blessed are.
And it shows you not only the JAWS status information, which is like the cursor in the main document, and whether you're in PC cursor mode, whether you're in structured mode and things like that, but it also shows you where on the dot pad the cursor is. And that's because when you're using a multi-line display that doesn't refresh as fast as a single line display, we don't blink the cursor. So say I'm just going to move my cursor. And now if I look at my dot pad, I am going to see the first part. It says 301 PS, which is what would normally show on the status area of a focus display or something like that, which is that means that the cursor is physically at pixel 301 and we're in PC cursor mode and structured mode. But then the next piece of the information on the status line of the of the dot pad is 05,01, which means that if I was to look on the fifth line, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and column 1, that's where my cursor is. So that's a really important thing to know when using the dot pad. The second piece of the status area, that single line area of the dot pad, shows you the line and column of where the cursor is on the dot pad. So remember, the first part of the status line shows you where the cursor is in the document. The second part shows you where the cursor is on the dot pad. So say if I move my cursor in one word to blessed, now it shows 05,04. So it's on line 5, column 4, and that's where the cursor is. Now on the dot pad, the cursor is a solid cursor, dots 7 and 8. So you can read it. It's just that because it's not blinking, it's not so obvious where to find it. All right, so I'm now going to bring up the JAWS Set Braille View dialog, and I'm going to do that by pressing F1 and F4 together.
Braille F1 plus F4, select Braille View dialog, list 1, list view, wrap mode, 1 of 9.
And it brings up a list of modes. Wrapped mode is the default mode. That's the mode we are currently in. That's the mode that is normally selected when you are in a document.
Crop mode, 2 of 9.
Cropped mode is normally turned on automatically when you enter a table or a spreadsheet, and I'll get to that later when we look at Excel. But you can turn it on manually if you, say, want to look at the formatting in your Word document. Say you want to feel on your focus on your dot pad indentation, headings, centering, left or right justification, etc. You can feel the layout of the document if you go to cropped mode. So cropped mode, unlike wrapped mode, instead of wrapping the text across the line, it will show you, for instance, the first part of all the lines. And then when you pan, it will show you the next part of all the lines. It's like a window into the page. Rather than reformatting the text, it will just show you the text as it is. So it might take 3 or 4 displays to show you the entire line.
Buffered text, 3 of 9.
Buffered text is where you can split the display and show 2 different parts of the same document, or even 2 totally different documents. I'll show you that right now, actually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press enter here on buffered mode.
Enter, edit.
And now on the focus display, the first 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 lines will say show where my active cursor is in the document. And then there's a horizontal line across the whole display, which shows you where the split is. And then the last 2 lines of the display show you where the active cursor is. But now I can move the active cursor. Say I go down to verse 176.
Bottom of 5, 174,
174, say. So now the top part of the display shows verses 174 to 175, and the bottom part of the display shows verse 1, and I can pan through them independently. So I can now pan through the active part of the document. I can go back to
left.
Verse 173,
Rail pan left.
171, etc. And the bottom part, now I can use keys F1 and F4 to pan just that little bit of the split area.
Rail F4.
Except, walk in the law of the Lord. Verse 2, blessed are
Rail F4.
those who keep his testimonies, etc. So we've literally got 2 independent things showing on the display that you can pan through independently. Now, this is absolutely fantastic for comparing products or for doing research. You can, for instance, go to the web, split the display, choose buffered mode, then go back to your active document in Word, and you'll keep the web document in the bottom part of the display, and you'll have your active document in the top part of the display, and you can pan through them both independently. That's buffered mode. And I'll go through the options in a sec for controlling these modes, but let me just continue through the modes. So I'm just going to bring up
Braille F1 plus F4. Select Braille view dialog. List 1, list view.
And
annotations 4.
The next one is annotations mode. In annotations mode, what happens is when you're in your Word document, you can be arrowing through your document. And when your cursor hits a footnote, endnote, or comment, all of a sudden the display will split and show you the footnote, endnote, or comment text in that bottom part of the display. So you can read the comment, footnote, or endnote without actually losing your context in the main document. So when your cursor moves out of the annotation, the display just fills with the rest of the text from the document. So the top part doesn't change. You just see your bottom 2 lines fill up again with text from your document. So annotations mode allows you to read live annotations as you're in your document. Very, very useful.
Attribute indicators 5.
The next one is attribute indicators. Now, for those JAWS users who use a single line display, you will remember that you can go to attributes mode, and the text of your document is normally replaced by indicators like B for bold, U for underline, I for italic, and if you've got text that has multiple attributes, then the attributes will be rotated, like B for a second, U for a second, I for a second. Well, in split and attributes mode, what we will see is the line of text with the indicator directly under the text. So you can literally put your finger on the, say you've got the words hello world, and hello is bold and world is underlined. So you can put your finger on the H of hello and then move it straight down to the next line, and you'll see the B for bold that corresponds with the H for the hello. Or if you put your finger on the W of world and move it straight down to the next line, you'll see the U for underline, or whatever the attribute was. So literally the attribute indicators follow the cursor on the line below your active line. That's attributes mode. So that's really handy for proofreading. Go to the next one.
Speech history 6.
The next one is speech history. Speech history split mode is really good for deaf-blind people because it will enable you to see the Braille representation on the first part of the display, or on the top 6 lines, and what is sent to the synthesizer in the bottom 2 lines of the display. So sometimes JAWS says things that are not shown in Braille, and that's a good way of being able to read both the Braille and read what was sent to the synthesizer without having to change modes. It's just both on the display at the same time.
Translation split 7 of.
Translation split is really useful for those who are learning a new Braille code. You can have grade 2 at the top and say UEB at the bottom part of your display, or a separate something else. Basically 2 different Braille grades. So you can read the same text on the display wherever your cursor is in whatever document you're in, but you'll be able to see it repeated with 2 different Braille grades. Really handy for learning how to interpret a new Braille code.
JAWS cursor 8 of 9.
The next one is JAWS cursor. This is a little bit like what you have when you use NVDA with the dot pad, in that what happens is you have the active part of, or the top part of the display is showing you the focus, and the bottom part is showing you where the JAWS cursor or the mouse is parked. So you can monitor something that the JAWS cursor is sitting on in the bottom part of the display while you're reading with the PC cursor in the top part of the display. And again, just to repeat, when I talk about the top half and bottom half of the display, the main 8 lines are split. So, and you can configure, I'll get to that in a minute, you can configure how many lines are used for the active and how many lines are used for the split area, but it's all on the main part of the display. Remember, the single line is used for status information.
Window text 9 of 9.
Next one is window text, which is a bit like JAWS cursor, but it's basically you can have the text of a different window on the bottom half of the display while the PC cursor is showing where your focus is at the top half of the display. It's good for scripters who want to script JAWS to, say, work in maybe an application which brings up another child window with text in it, and you always want that window to be visible on your display. Okay, so that's all the default split modes, but some applications...
Home wrap mode 1 of 9.
Just go to the top of the dialog again, because I'm going to go down and show you some options in a minute. Some applications have more split modes. So for instance, Outlook enables you to turn on a mode which shows you the preview of your message in the bottom part of the display while you're sitting in your inbox. And you can literally pan through your message without leaving your inbox, which is really, really handy. So basically you turn on your message preview, you turn on this option in the split mode in the Set Braille View dialog in Outlook Classic. It only works in Outlook Classic at the moment. And you can literally sit in your inbox, arrow up and down, and see not only the message, who it's from, the date, the sender, etc., subject, but you can read your message at the bottom part of your display without hitting enter, and you can pan through the message with your F1 and F4, just like you could pan through any split message. Other applications that support extra custom modes like this are PowerPoint. You can view a presentation and see your speaker's notes in the split area of the display. In Microsoft Teams, in your chat, you can have the live part of your chat in the top part of the display, and you can read the history of your chat in the bottom half of the display. And any scripter who is clever enough can basically script JAWS to create new split modes. So whether you work in a CRM environment, or whether you work in a telephone, in a call center, you could, for instance, get someone to script JAWS to use the dot-pad real estate more efficiently. All right, so I'm going to now show you that some of these split modes,
Crop mode, buffer text, 3 of.
I'm going to go back down to buffered mode, have options that you can change. So I'm in the set braille view dialog. I've arrowed down to buffered mode. I'm going to hit Shift Tab.
Options button.
Options button. I'm going to hit enter.
Enter. Set braille view options dialog. List 1 list view. Buffer unit document up to 64 KB 1 of 5.
And now we've got a few options specific to buffered mode. The first option is the unit. You can either buffer, or let me go through them. I'm going to hit space to cycle through the options. So we're currently on
buffer unit document up to 64 KB 1 of 5.
Buffered unit up to 64 kilobytes of a document. You can change it to
space buffer unit selected text. Buffer unit selected text.
Just the selected text.
Space buffer unit clipboard text.
You could change it to the clipboard text, so you don't even have to have text selected. So for instance, if you've got something on your clipboard and you want to be able to just put that on the bottom part of your display, you can do that.
Space buffer unit paragraph.
Buffered unit paragraph. Maybe you only want a paragraph of your document. You don't want 64K. You want to limit it to a paragraph. You can do that.
Space buffer unit document up to 60.
And we're back to document unit up to 64K of your document. So again, that is how much of the document where your cursor is that is buffered when you go into that split buffered mode, where that frozen part of the document gets placed on the bottom part of your display that you can pan through independently from the live part of your focus in the top part of the display. If I arrow down,
refresh buffer text on enter off.
You have an option for refreshing the buffer when you press the enter key. So imagine you're working in, say, Math Viewer in JAWS, or you're working in some other program where you're trying to solve a maths problem. And what you want to do is you want to be able to review the line or the lines where your active cursor is, but you want to be able to see the document above where your lines are in the split mode. And you want, when you press enter and you're working in a math problem, to update that split mode to include the next line of working every time you press enter. That's what this option is for. So for instance, you're working in a math problem and you want to keep, because normally, of course, buffered mode will freeze the document at the point when you buffered it, but this will basically update it every time you press enter. So if you've added a line of working, that line of working will get added to that buffer at the bottom. That's what that option's for turning that on and off.
Display split separator on 3.
Display split separator. Normally, you have like 6 lines or 5 lines of the active part of, or the live part of your display. Then you have a horizontal line dot across the dot pad, and then 2 lines of your split data. But you might think, well, I know how many lines are in the active part, and I know how many lines are in the split part. I don't need that separator line. That's a waste of a line. I want to turn that off. So then I get to use a full 6 lines or even 4 lines or whatever for live, and the rest for split. So you can turn that horizontal line off using this option.
Show split data at bottom 4 of 5.
And the next one is show split data at bottom. You can toggle that to the top. So say you want your live data at the bottom of your display and the split data at the top of your display, you can do it here.
Lines used for split data 2, 5 of 5.
And lines used for split data, currently it's set to 2. You can change that to, well, up to 6. So basically, well, actually, I think you can change it up to half your display, up to 4. So that's how many lines you want to use for your split data. All right, I'm going to come out of there.
Escape, edit.
I'm going to go back in and
Braille F1 plus F4. Select Braille view dialog. Annotations for attribute indicator. Speech history. Translation split 7.
so I'm going down to translation split. I'm going to show you the options for that.
Options button. Enter. Set Braille view options dialog. List 1 list view. Translation split language computer Braille 1 of 4.
Okay, so for this translation split, you've got different options. The first option is the language you want to use for the split data. Now, what it will do is it'll figure out what language you have for your live data, and it will offer you all the rest of the languages except that one for your split data, because it doesn't make sense to have the same language for your split data. So say your current language for your live data is US grade 2, which mine is. I can only cycle through computer Braille.
Translation split language computer Braille 1 of 4. Space. Translation split language U.S. English grade 1. Space. Translation split language unified English Braille grade 1. Space. Translation split language unified English Braille grade 2. Space. Translation split language computer Braille.
So it'll only allow me to cycle through the other English languages, which I don't have selected for the active live language.
Display split separator on.
And then the other options are the same. The separator.
Show split data at bottom. Free.
Show split data at
Lines
bottom,
used for split data.
lines used, etc.
Escape. Edit.
So
Escape.
basically what I'm showing you there is that the options ... dialog, which you get to by hitting Shift Tab from that Set Braille View list, change depending on which split mode you are working with. Oh, let me just show you the one for cropped mode.
Braille F1 plus F4. Select Braille view dialog. JAWS cursor 8 of 9. Split and crop mode 2 of 9. Options ... Enter. Set Braille view options dialog. List 1 list view. Alignment delimiter no vertical alignment.
Okay. I'm preempting this, but the first one is
alignment delimiter no vertical.
Alignment delimiter. So in tables, you can have an alignment delimiter.
Column indicators on. Alignment.
Which is like a ... used in table of contents. You remember in a table of contents, you have like a leader dot. So say you're in cropped mode and you're looking at tabular data, which I'm going to get to in a sec when we get to Excel. If your finger wanders as you're going across the row, if there's a big lot of white space, you can turn on the leader dot, which will fill the white space with a leader dot. That way it's easier to read across columns without straying. Now, I personally don't like the leader dot, but some people might like that.
Column indicators on 2.
Column indicators. When we get to Excel, I will explain to you, but basically there's a vertical line straight down the dot pad between columns in a table or in a spreadsheet, and you can turn that on and off.
Dot leader off, 3 of 6. Column alignment delimiter no vertical alignment.
Oh, sorry. The first one was alignment delimiter. That's actually different to
dot leader off.
This is a dot leader here. Alignment delimiter is you can actually go into Notepad and open a CSV file, a comma separated values file, or a file that's formatted with some other delimiter in Notepad, and you can tell JAWS, use that delimiter to format this document on the dot pad for tabular data. That's what that
column alignment
delimiter is for.
Dot leader off.
The dot leader is down here. It's a third option. So basically, you can look at a CSV file or another or a file that's got some character as a delimiter, and you can say format this document on the dot pad automatically to show this as numerical data using this as a separator, a comma or a semicolon or a tab. So that is really, really, really powerful. I'll explain about vertical alignment when I get to Excel in a second.
Display split separator on 4 of 6.
The other options are the same.
Show split data at bottom. 5 lines used for split data.
Okay.
Escape. Edit.
Right. Let me just make sure I'm Back
Braille
in
F1 plus
draft
F4.
mode.
Select home. Wrap mode. Enter. Edit.
Okay. I'm going to go over to Excel now.
Screen sharing meeting. Webinar outline. Timetable. Sample.xls.xlsd Excel.
Okay. For those of you who don't know what a spreadsheet is, it is like a table of information. I'm sitting now in my favorite little sample, which is a school timetable. So if you can imagine across the top row, the first column is blank A1, the next column is Monday, the next column is Tuesday, next column is Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Then down the left-hand side, we have times, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. And then under Monday, we've got your subjects, maths, chemistry, biology, free, English, social studies, etc. So right now on the dot pad, I'm showing column 1 or column A1, which has the 9 o'clock, the times. Then I have a vertical line. Then I have the column Monday, maths, etc. Now, what I see is that the text is perfectly formatted. So instead of, so for instance, when I look down the times column, because it's numerical data, everything is aligned on the last 0. Now, if it was decimals, it would be aligned on the decimal point. So it's like how a sighted person would look at numeric data. So if it was numeric data that you could add up, you could literally add it up, units, tens, or decimal points, etc. In numerical data. And then if it's textual information, it will be aligned on the left margin of the column. So it literally formats each column so that you have white space to fill the rest of the column, so that each column takes up exactly the same number of cells. So it's perfectly formatted. And this is done on the fly. And it doesn't matter whether you've got translation on or off, the text is perfectly formatted. So I'm going to arrow across to the next column.
Monday, B1.
So now I'm showing the Monday column on the left of the dot pad, and then I'm showing a vertical line, and then I'm showing the start of the Tuesday column. It's not quite wide enough to see much of that column. But it's wonderful because you can read the whole column. You don't have to pan around to try and figure out, well, on Monday at 10 o'clock, I've got chemistry. I don't have to arrow around. And I can see, in the slot at 9 o'clock, I've got maths. And at the slot at 11 o'clock, I've got biology. So tabular data, imagine with speech, you either have to listen to the whole row or you have to navigate around by cell, and then you have to have a perfect memory to figure out what was in the column above, what was in the row before or after. But with Braille on the dot pad, you don't have to memorize as much because you can literally see the column, the text above, below. You can see the previous column or the next column, depending on whether there's enough room, how wide the columns are. And another really cool feature is if I arrow to a cell,
Blank A1, Monday B1, Tuesday C1, 9 o'clock. Text studies C2,
which has a comment on it. So there's a comment on Tuesday C2 text studies. And at the bottom of the display, it splits automatically. There's a horizontal line. And then under that, the comment shows for that cell. Comment, text studies is
Braille F4.
My favorite subject. That's the comment for that cell. And then you arrow away from that
Wednesday,
cell, that
English
disappears and shows you the rest of the spreadsheet again. So it splits to show you comments or formulae in your spreadsheet. I'm just going to arrow across again to see
Thursday,
the next
3E2.
part of the spreadsheet. So if you arrow across and a column doesn't quite
Wednesday, English Tuesday, text 9 o'clock, 8,
here.
10 o'clock, 8.
If you pan and the column doesn't quite fit on the display, it'll automatically move that column as far left as it can on the dot pad to make most use of the real estate. So I'm just going to pan.
Braille pan right.
And now I'm showing the Monday column at the left of the dot pad. If I pan
Braille
again.
pan right.
Now I'm showing the Tuesday column at the left of the dot pad and the beginning of the Wednesday column. And as I said, perfectly formatted. So if it's numerical data, it's each column is vertically aligned on the decimal point or the zero or the units column. If it's text within the column, it will be vertically aligned, left vertically aligned within the column. And it's all done on the fly for the amount of text that is showing in those columns. And the column headings remain visible on the display. So say you arrow down 20 rows into the column headers will still remain visible at the top of the column so that you can see which column you're looking at. So you don't lose the column context, even though you've arrowed, and a sighted person might not be able to see them unless they've frozen the row containing the column information. So
First cell, blank, A1.
Excel is an extremely nice experience used with multi-line Braille. And I can't stress that enough. Having multiple lines of context, both in a document for a presentation or in an Excel spreadsheet, is the holy grail of Braille. You cannot get better than this. And I think that, once people start to appreciate multi-line Braille, why would you ever go back to single line? I don't know. And the dot pad represents an amazing value for money unit with great support from JAWS. Well,
4:37 a.m.
I'm going to put it back to Gary or Dave to field your questions now. I think I've pretty well covered everything that I want to cover here. So has anyone got any questions?
This is Anat. I'm going to help with the questions. We
Sure.
had a few questions. Tim, I've got one for you at the end. We have here a few people who are first timers and they would like to see dot pad. So let's hold off on that one and do it at the end, but let's make sure we leave about 5 minutes. And then we have several questions, Joe, for you. You may have addressed some of them, but I think it would be great if we can just quickly address them again. The first one is, how does the dot pad X, does the dot pad X have cursor routing buttons? So if you wanted to move the cursor, could you?
The dot pad X doesn't have cursor routing buttons. You just arrow around. Oh, actually, I didn't cover that. It's a really good point. You can navigate around from the dot pad. So you can move by line, you can pan, you can do home and end from the dot pad using the key combinations with the function keys, either pressing two keys together or by themselves. So you can navigate around, you can move your cursor around, but you can't, say, press a cell and move the cursor to that cell on the dot pad X.
Thank you, Joe. The next question is from Dave. Can I modify the window of each document shown in buffered mode?
Yes, you can. What will happen is the document will remain as it was buffered, but then you can rebuffer it to update it.
Great. Next question is from Jackie Brown. Good to see you, Jackie. Would it be possible to use that pad to read your list of appointments in the Outlook Classic Calendar day view?
Yes. In Outlook, the amount of information that fits on the dot pad is really, really good. Like in the inbox, you literally see everything. You don't have to pan, you can see, and it's the same in the calendar. I mean, whatever information's there will be shown across the line, as many lines as will fit. The thing about JAWS is structured mode is used for Braille in dialogues, calendar, inbox, and things like that. So the kind of information that gets added to the display can be modified. So if, you can script JAWS or just use the settings center to change what structured mode actually shows in structured mode. For example, in the run dialog, you can see like the dialog title, you can see the prompt, the type, the text, the position, and those pieces of information can be reordered. They can be what we do is we show certain components on different lines, so it's easy to find your prompt and things like that. And that holds true in Calendar or anywhere else.
Okay, great. Thank you, Joe. A question from Derry. So if you were doing an exam in math, could you easily read the questions and see the formulas on the screen?
Well, it depends on which application that you're using, but yes, I mean, you could set it up so you can do that. Yeah, it really would depend on what application you're using.
Can I just jump in and just say that we haven't covered it, but JAWS is very good for maths, and so the maths support works very well with DotPad, either on the web or in Word for Windows.
And we have a demo, Gary, that you recorded of how to use math. So if somebody is interested, drop us a line. We can share that with you. Question from Martin from Black Forest in Germany. The question is for Joe. Joe, I assume you come from working with an 80-character Braille display. How long did it take you to get routine with DotPad?
Oh, it's a really good question. I fell in love with it the first time I read it. The thing about DotPad is you don't have to move your hands as far across. Like an 80 cell displays, I feel are too wide. 20 to 32 cells is kind of optimal for reading. So the dots are really nice. They're a really nice dot. As I said, the only complaint I have is when it's hot and sticky, and I'll use a cotton glove. But I've even talked to Dot about changing the membrane to be better for hot climates. But the dots are really nice. The refresh rate's pretty good for the DotPad X, and it's just a really nice experience.
Great. Question from Sarah. Does it work with both Nemeth and UEB Technical for Math?
Well, yes, JAWS has UEB and Nemeth, so you can choose whatever math code you want to use.
Okay, fantastic. And the next one is for Tim. Tim, do you mind doing a brief demo of DotPad for those who are first and haven't seen it before? And maybe describe what it looks like and what buttons and interface it has?
Yes, that is no problem. So the DotPad.
Just before we do that, I think we may still be sharing on Joe's screen. So Joe,
Sharing
can I
meeting
ask you
control.
to stop sharing? Thank you.
All
Go
right.
ahead,
So
Tim.
the DotPad X is roughly the size of an iPad Pro. It is roughly about 11 inches by about an inch thick. That's about 8 inches. So it's itself is a very good form factor overall. And within that size, it weighs just around 2.6 pounds. So it's a very portable, very lightweight, very versatile device. And when you have it in front of you, you have three main elements. On the upper part of the display, so this would be the part that is furthest from you, is where we have what is called the main graphical and multi-line display. And this is the area that Joe was talking about, where we have the 8 lines by 20 cells. And it's able to do that along with tactile graphics through apps like our own Dot Canvas app and other solutions. When we come towards us, we have our 6 navigational buttons, and these are configured based on what it is you are connecting the dot pad to. So the 6 buttons will do something different if you are using it with JAWS, like we discussed today, with NVDA, VoiceOver, .canvas, or other solutions individuals may come up with for using the .pad X. And then below that, we have our single line 20 cell Braille display. And this Braille display has all of its cells configured as if it is a normal display. And once again, based on what you are connecting the .pad to will determine what the single line display is used for. So as Joe indicated with JAWS, it's used to give us status information about where we are within the screen with JAWS, as well as other information about your various JAWS indicators. If we are using it with, say, VoiceOver on a iOS device, then we are able to get basically a mirror image of what VoiceOver is saying to us. So if we are on a tactile graphic image, the top part is going to be a tactile graphic and the bottom part will be what VoiceOver tells us. And then if we're using it on .canvas, the top part would be that tactile graphic, and then the bottom part will be that description in your Braille code of choice. And so these are the 3 main elements that we are interacting with the .pad. There's a couple of other elements that is on the screen. On the display, and that's going to be on the left edge of the .pad, as you'll find a Braille D, and over on the side of the device, that is where you'll have the USB-C port for data connection. So say you want to connect your computer with a cable, like I personally like to do that myself, you plug that USB-C cable from your computer into that port on the left. And then on the right side of the .pad, you'll find a Braille P. And then on the side of it, that is your power port, a USB-C power port. And right below that is where you'll find the on-off switch. And once again, with those, going back over to those 6 navigation buttons, all that will be based on how it is and what it is that you are connected to. But those 6 buttons in order of left to right is left panning, F1, F2, F3, F4, and right panning. The left and right panning is in the shape of a triangle or arrow. And then the F1 and the F4 will have a tactile notch in the bottom center of those buttons.
Thank you, Tim. A related question, we actually got a bunch of questions. Thank you for asking them. Is if you have a doc with text and graphics, can you view it at the same time on the same page?
Depends which application you're using. But yes, you could, in the sense that if the Braille text is drawn on the graphic, then it'll show on the same time. But if you're looking in say Word, depending which application. So currently JAWS doesn't have graphical integration, but it's coming.
Okay. Jackie, thank you for kind words. She says, trust me, it's a beautiful device. I'm wedded to it. Another question from Derry. Hi, can I get a case for the .pad? I only felt it once for about 5 minutes and totally love it. I can address that question. .pad comes with a bumper case as well as a soft carrying case. So everything you need comes with it. If for some reason something happens to either one of them, you can contact us and we can coordinate a replacement. Last but not the least, if a math instructor formats a document in Word correctly, would it display a UAB or NMS/UAB technical simultaneously?
That's a great question. I haven't tried it, but there's no reason why it shouldn't with split translation.
Okay.
You can also change the math code with insert equals. So it's very quick to select the code that you actually want to view.
And I think a nice way to also summarize this is it's also going to be based largely on your screen reader, because the dot pad is a terminal display. And so all of the functionality on what's going to be output to the dot pad is based on the capabilities of your screen reader, with JAWS, of course, being one of the best ones, especially for this case, as like Gary said before, it has a phenomenal capabilities for how it does MathML and Nemeth, and its ability to output to the dot pad is phenomenal. So I just put that caveat there.
Okay, and I think we have one more question from Mustafa. If you have the split mode on, how can you change JAWS focus between two simultaneously open documents, for example, with the dot pad?
So with split mode on, the split area remains whatever you set it to first, and then you just Alt Tab to whatever document that you want, and that is then displayed on the top half of the display. So the top half of the display follows your focus when you Alt Tab, whereas the split mode is what is buffered or frozen at the time when you initialize when you first choose that buffered mode. Does that answer the question?
I don't see any other questions so far. We do have about 9 minutes left, so if there are any other questions, please type them in.
But in the meantime, let me just say thank you, everyone, for joining us here on this month as we get to know how to use a dot pad with JAWS. And very, very special thank you, Joe. That was a phenomenal presentation that I learned absolutely a tremendous a lot about how to use JAWS with a dot pad with all the features, the split braille, all those items are just phenomenal to see. How can we get more out of our experiences with JAWS with the dot pad? If you would like to learn more about dot pad and Dot Incorporated, I'll hand things over to Luis to learn more about how you can get in touch with us through our socials, newsletters, and other publications. So, Luis.
Okay, great. So thanks everybody. So if you have been watching today's session live, you very likely already subscribed to our newsletter, or perhaps you follow us on LinkedIn. We run monthly webinars now. This has been our third event. We'll be hosting our next event on the 9th of February, and then there'll be a following event again in March. So we'll be sending out communications in the next week or so, inviting you to attend one of those events. But if you're not signed up for our newsletter already, you may like to just drop us a quick note to info@dotincorp.com, where we can add you to our mailing list. So we regularly post what we're doing on LinkedIn. So again, that's .inc on LinkedIn, as well as Facebook as well. So just look out for Dot on any of the social media channels that you regularly follow. We also have a blog that we update regularly with news and events. So if you head over to our website, dotincorp.com, you can access our blog there at the bottom of the site. And we have information on there, for example, on all the events that we're attending globally this quarter. So we'll be out and about at a lot of events. We've just returned from CES. We've got many more events coming up in the next few weeks. So we hopefully see some of you in person at one of those events very soon.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Luis. And I also want to do a special call out to our wonderful Dave Williams, who couldn't join us today, and the wonderful job he is doing with our podcast series called Raising the Dots. And I do definitely encourage everyone, if you have not subscribed to our podcast as well, to please check out Raising the Dots, where Dave is doing a phenomenal job interviewing individuals from throughout the world about their experiences with Braille, as well as doing a good job with advocating for increased awareness about Braille literacy, and fluency. For example, in December's episode, there's a most excellent interview Dave and Jackie had together that's a great joy to catch up on. So you can find Raising the Dots at any of your podcast services that you may use. And
Tim, we have two more, one question and one comment.
Yep.
So JJ, hi, good to see you here. He says, thank you, join the team. I love the power of split braille, and it is one of the best examples of the power of multi-line braille. So thank you for that positive reinforcement. And we have a question from Theo. Is it possible to have a split view with a document on the top and Joe's Braille Math editor at the bottom?
That is, yes, it is, but I would probably do it the other way round, because if you're using the math viewer live, you would probably have that on the top and then your split document on the bottom. Whatever live application you're actually using needs to be in the non-split area. I guess you could switch the split so that it's swapped, so you have the live bit at the bottom.
Yeah, you can always do that, and that works.
Yeah, but the main point is that you need to be working in the live application, and then have the other document as the split, the frozen one.
Another question just came in, and I love, guys, that you keep asking questions. This question is from Deanna. I realized the DotPad doesn't have a keyboard. Can you connect a Braille keyboard to it?
Not at this stage. So you would need to use your QWERTY keyboard or the DotPad for navigation only.
And
yeah, you would sometimes there can be confusion as to whether you can connect a keyboard to the DotPad itself. Now, the DotPad is a display, it's not a word processor. But if you have a Bluetooth keyboard connected to your PC or to your iPhone, that will work. You can use a Bluetooth keyboard, but that will still act as a QWERTY keyboard. You can't connect another Braille keyboard and then do Braille input.
The only slight session we cover this one, we talk about VoiceOver, is if you press your VOY, this is a very unique feature that Apple rolled out with iOS, macOS 26. And so if you have your standard QWERTY keyboard, it is Braille keyboard input. And what this will do is it'll turn your home run keys, so your ASDF, into a traditional Perkins style keyboard. So that is a unique feature that kind of that yeah but answer to connecting a Braille keyboard that I personally use as a VoiceOver user. But otherwise, yeah, no, it's the quick answer.
Yeah, the quick answer is no, but there are people doing things with keyboards, but it's not supported at the moment.
We have two more questions, and probably those are the only ones we can take at the moment. Is it possible in the translation mode to have a 6-dot Braille in a half and an 8-dot Braille in the other?
That's an interesting question. I haven't tried it, but there's no reason why you couldn't.
Okay, somebody please try and let us know. And the last question, what does your desk setup look like? Is your keyboard behind the DotPad, elevated perhaps? Any other comments about ergonomics?
That is a great question. I generally have my DotPad to the right of my main keyboard, but that's just because that's how it fits on my desk. Right now for the demo, I've got it in directly in front of me with the main keyboard behind, but it's a bit far back. I would recommend having the DotPad on the left or right of your main keyboard. The one issue is that if you're using it with USB, the USB cables come out of the sides, which does make it that you have to have it further away from your main keyboard. So it's probably a good idea if you're using Bluetooth, you could put it on your left and then it can be right up against your main keyboard. But it's a good question, and it's going to depend on the individual a little bit, but you are kind of limited.
Totally agreed. I mean, I have mine likewise. I use a laptop, and so I have my dot pad just to the right of my laptop, and it works fantastically there. But it will differ from individual to individual as to where they want to place it.
And I have a slightly different desk setup. So what I do with mine is I have a standing and sitting desk. And what I would do is work up on the laptop with a keyboard, and then I would have the dot pad on that tray that is normally used for keyboards when I'm in the standing mode. Otherwise, another thing that I found, especially while standing at my desk, is those laptop risers that kind of give a little bit of angle, or those like little monitor usually used for cooling and other things. I have one of those from a long time ago that I took out of storage, and I actually have the dot pad on that also as another way of positioning it. So instead of normally with the dot pad itself, it has, I think it's a 15-degree angle with the wedge on the back. And so with the little laptop riser that I have the dot pad also on occasionally, it changes that angle to like a 30 or 45 degrees. So as I'm standing, it just gives me another way of accessing it. So as Gary said, it's like, yeah, it's ergonomics is going to be based on the individual and how much space you have in your area that you're using it. Otherwise, when I'm on the plane, I just use it while sitting down and on the plane. So it is
I would
easily.
suggest. Sorry, just going to say, I would suggest if you are using with USB, if you can get a cable with a tight 90-degree angle, it just would make it so that you can put your dot pad closer to your main keyboard.
Great. I think we are probably at our time. We've asked people to stay for just over an hour now. So, Tim, did you want to wrap up?
Yeah. No, so again, I just want to say thank you everyone for joining us for this month. Next month, as Lou said, we'll go ahead and meet back up, same time, on February 9th, where we'll have more information coming out. So please check our socials, our newsletter, and other areas to go and keep up to date with our webinar series and other information. If you want to learn more about Dot Incorporated, go ahead, feel free to visit us at our website at dotincorp.com. That is DOTINCORP.com. And again, thank you everyone for joining us, and see you next time.